All right, welcome. Today, we're going to break down a narrative that's been making waves, the story of the Delhi liquor policy case. And according to one viral take, this isn't just a political scandal, it's being called India's biggest conspiracy.
So let's just jump right in. The whole story, at least as our source presents it, kicks off with this giant contradiction. And it's a question that pretty much frames this entire saga. How can a so-called scam that actually increased government revenue lead to the arrest of a sitting chief minister? I mean, how does that even work?
Okay, so the story we're following doesn't start at the beginning. Nope, it drops us right into the thick of it, on the night of March 21st, 2024.
And this is a big deal. For the very first time in India's history, a sitting chief minister, Arvind Kejriwal, gets arrested, right from his own home, by the Enforcement Directorate. We're talking a raid, an interrogation, and then boom, he's sent to Tihar jail. And all of this is supposedly over a liquor policy.
So, the big question is, how did we even get to this point? To explain that, the narrative we're looking at rewinds the clock. It points to what it calls 3 danger bells. 3 specific moments that, it claims, put the ruling party on high alert and kind of set the stage for everything that was about to go down.
And what's really fascinating here is how this source frames these wins. It's not just about winning elections. The argument is that each victory was seen as a bigger and bigger threat. First, there's the massive win in Delhi in 2020. Okay, bell number 1. Then just 2 years later, they pull off a huge majority in Punjab, a whole new state. That's bell number 2. And then the third and final bell, announcing they're going to contest every single seat in Gujarat, which is, the ruling party's home turf. That, according to this telling, was the last straw.
And according to the source, the timing is everything. It draws a straight line from that third danger bell to the first major arrest. It claims that literally just a month after the Gujarat announcement, Delhi's health minister, Satyendra Jain, gets arrested for a case from 2017 that had basically been sitting on a shelf. The source really hammers home that this timing isn't just a coincidence.
All right, so now we get to the policy itself, the thing at the very center of this whole firestorm. This is where the source really breaks down the supposed scam and, that huge contradiction we talked about at the beginning.
So here's the deal. Before, the government pretty much ran all the liquor sales. The new policy, though, it completely flipped that. It privatized everything, handing sales over to licensed vendors. The idea was to modernize sales and, importantly, make more money for the government. But it's this very act of privatization that became ground zero for all the allegations of corruption.
And here's the number that the source puts front and center, 8,900 crore. Get this, the government had set a target of around 7,041 crore. But this new policy? It blew past that, bringing in almost 9,000 crore. That's a whopping 27% increase. More money, not less.
And this quote from the source really just sums up the whole puzzle, doesn't it? It says, this might be the first corruption scam in history where the government's revenue actually went up. It's a simple question, right? If the goal was to steal from the government, how did the government end up richer? But then you have the official story, which paints a totally different picture. A report from Delhi's chief secretary suddenly claims there was actually a loss of 580 crore rupees. That report triggers the lieutenant governor, or LG, to order a full-blown CBI investigation. And the source makes sure to point out that the chief secretary, the LG, and the CBI, they're all appointed by the central government.
So now the investigation is on. And this is where, according to the source, a very specific legal playbook comes into action. A strategy it claims was designed to take out the party's leadership one by one.
To really get what's happening next, you have to understand this one law, the PMLA, or the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. The source calls this the Brahmastra, the ultimate weapon. Why? Because of one absolutely crucial feature. It reverses the burden of proof. Normally, you're innocent until proven guilty. But under PMLA, to get bail, you have to prove you're innocent. And as you can imagine, that is incredibly, incredibly difficult.
In this law, the PMLA is the key to what the video calls the double arrest strategy. It's like a legal 1-2 punch. Step 1, the CBI arrests someone in the main corruption case. Step 2, right before they can get bail in that case, the Enforcement Directorate, or ED, swoops in and arrests the very same person under the PMLA. The source argues this wasn't an accident. It was a system designed to keep key people locked up without any real chance of getting out.
Okay, now we're going to fast forward 2 years. We're jumping ahead to what the source presents as the grand finale, the climax of this whole drama, the court's judgment. And it claims this judgment just tore the entire case apart.
And here it is, the line the source has been building to. A direct quote, it says, from the court judgment, "The entire case has been proven to be baseless." I mean, that's pretty direct. The claim is that the court found the whole thing was so weak it couldn't even get off the ground.
So you might be wondering, what was the proof for this massive multi-crore money trail? Well, according to the source, the main evidence was, wait for it, notes jotted down in pencil on loose sheets of paper. Yeah, that's it. And as the source points out, the court reportedly took one look at that and said, nope, this isn't credible evidence.
And this is where the source drops what it calls a bombshell. It claims that while the agency couldn't find a money trail to the accused, it did find another one. One that went in the complete opposite direction. The key witness who turned approver in this case was a man named Sharat Chandra Reddy. The source alleges that just 5 days after his arrest, his company donated 5 crore rupees to the ruling BJP through electoral bonds. Then, 2 months after he turned approver, another 25 crore.
But it gets even more intense. According to the source, the judge didn't just find a lack of evidence. The judge actually accused the CBI of something called suppression by obscurity. Essentially, the claim is that the CBI deliberately hid evidence that would have helped the accused by burying it in a massive data dump of 14,000 emails. It's like hiding a key document by putting it on page 8,000 of a giant report.
The source then breaks down how the court supposedly picked apart the case against the top leaders. For Manish Sisodia, the finding was that he'd followed all the rules. And here's the kicker. The policy itself was officially approved by the lieutenant governor. So the source asks a pretty logical question. If the policy he signed off on was a scam, why isn't the LG also being charged?
In the end, the video claims the court's final take was absolutely devastating. It reportedly called the whole investigation a preconceived narrative and a choreographed exercise, basically accusing the investigators of deciding who was guilty from the very beginning and then just trying to find or create facts to back it up. In fact, it says the court was so concerned, it ordered an inquiry into the lead officer himself.
So, after all of that, what's the big takeaway from the story presented in this video? Well, it leaves us with a really big question. It lays out a narrative of a political takedown, where a policy that actually made the government money was twisted into a scam. It claims the case itself was called baseless by the court. So the question it leaves you with is this. What does this story, as it's told here, suggest about our systems of power and justice?